Hi! In this video, I'm going to read you the diary entries for July 22nd through August 5th. Remember, these are the entries that you have to have read by next Monday, March 30th, by 8 a.m. you have to have turned in the work for this reading. Before we get started, I want to remind you at any time during the video you need to pause and make annotations. Please do so. Even though I'm not checking them, annotations are a really great strategy to help you do some close reading and really get the key details and facts of the novel, because we're looking at the analyzing criterion for this unit, and I want you to make sure that you are highlighting key text evidence pieces that you're going to need for the summative, okay? Before we read, I'll just go over the questions that you're going to have to answer at the end so you can keep those in mind as I read this. So the first question, you're going to have to look at page 32. Okay, on this page, it becomes evident that there's tension at a middle school between the Muslim and Hindu students. Nisha says, everything is different now, even though it's exactly the same. I can see it all around us, but I don't know what to call it. It's like a new sound I can hear in the air. So the questions you're going to have to answer regarding that statement and regarding the situation is A, what is she comparing to a new sound? B, what type of figurative language did the author use to compare these two things? The second question you're going to have to answer over these diary entries, what are some key moments in the characters' everyday lives when tensions between Muslims and Hindus grow and become dangerous? So as we go through the reading, when you notice situations that are showing us the tensions between the Muslims and the Hindus, where it's changed from before, or where you notice that it's grown and become more dangerous, where it's changing, okay, those are things that you need to take note of. You need to highlight those, underline those, and write out to the side what is your thinking on it, or what does that situation mean? What does it entail? Who's involved? Give some description as you include that in your answers. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and begin reading. I'm on page 27. The diary entry is July 22nd, 1947. Dear Mama, Dr. Ahmed came over tonight. He's Papa's friend at the hospital. They are the only doctors there. Papa does more of the checkups and surgeries, and Dr. Ahmed helps women have babies. He comes to our house about once a month. He and Papa smoke their pipes and stay up late playing cards. It's the only time Papa smokes a pipe. Usually I hear them talking loudly, laughing sometimes. Papa also only laughs like that with Dr. Ahmed. But tonight, as I lay in my bed with my mosquito net floating like a ghost around me, I did not hear any laughing. They spoke low. I heard the names again: Gandhi, Jinnah, Nehru, Mountbatten. They talked about bad things in the Punjab, rioting, killing. Dottie and Papa are having lots of whispering conversations at night, too. They sit in the kitchen, and I can't hear their words, but I hear murmurs and spoons clinking around in cups, and Dottie's slippers shuffling about as she makes Papa tea. Here's another secret, Mama. I'm jealous of Papa because he has his mother and I don't. No mother shuffles about in her slippers making me tea. I wonder if Papa's jealous of me since his Papa died a long time ago. I asked Emil today what he thinks is happening. He says Kazi told him it's true. The British people are going to free India, but there's talk of India being separated into two countries where Muslims have to go one place and the Hindus, the Sikhs, and everybody else have to go to another place. I told him that sounded insane. Why would India suddenly become two countries? I don't know why, but it's true, Emil said. I swallowed hard so no tears would come. Kazi would never leave us. We're a family. We'll stay together. How can you know? Because of Mama. We're part Muslim, too. Shush! We're not supposed to talk about that, Emil hissed at me. I wanted to smile because nobody ever tells me to shush. But I didn't. And it's not true either. No one ever told us not to talk about it. What if I want to talk about it, Mama? What if that's the only thing I want to talk about? What do you think that Mama would have to say to this? July 23rd, 1947. Dear Mama, Today I woke up thinking about Kazi and followed the smells of breakfast into the kitchen. I stood by the door and watched him frying puris. Spray it first. Sorry, I was talking to Mia. He turned and saw me and motioned me over. I came and he handed me a lump of the soft dough. I squeezed it and squeezed it. I breathed in a big gulp of air, let it out, and asked him if he would have to leave us soon when everyone goes in different directions. He looked at me and smiled, then bent down and held my face. His hands were greasy and coated in flour. I could see his eyes get big and glassy, like he might even cry. He told me I was like a daughter to him and that I'd always be with him in his heart. Then he told me not to knead the dough too hard or it would fry up like a rock. I didn't say anything else. It took a lot of energy to ask that question. I wished he had answered it. I don't know when I'll be able to ask it again. So, is there a time that you've had to ask somebody a hard question or have a conversation about something serious? I want you to think about how that went for you and the courage that it took you to ask that question or to have that conversation. Okay, just make that connection. Make that text to self connection with Nisha here. July 24th, 1947. Dear Mama, I used to think of people by their names and what they looked like or what they did. Sahil sells pakoras on the corner. Now I look at him and think Sikh. My teacher, Sir Habib, is now my Muslim teacher. My friend Sabine is happy and talks a lot. Now she's my Muslim friend. Papa's friend, Dr. Ahmed, is now a Muslim doctor. I think of everyone I know and try to remember if they are Hindu or Muslim or Sikh and who has to go and who has to stay. Emil said it's good that we will be free from the British, but what does that mean? Doesn't freedom mean you can choose where you want to be? Maybe Emil was making up things. He does that sometimes. Once in a while, he tells me Kazi has a sweet for us when he doesn't, or that Papa's home early when he's not. Emil thinks he's being funny. I want to ask Dottie, but she never tells me anything, at least anything important. She just tells me to go off and get my chores or schoolwork done. I have a plan. I'm going to wake up early and catch Papa. It's still wrinkly, bless you.
Where do I put it?
But it's still wrinkled, so you gotta iron it again.
I know, but where do I put it when I'm done?
When you're done, put it on the chair. I'm sorry, we're making masks. My friend is a nurse and sent out a request for some masks, so my daughter and I are making masks, so I apologize. Once in a while, he tells me Kazi has a sweet for us when he doesn't, or that Papa's home early when he's not. Emil thinks he's being funny. I want to ask Dottie, but she never tells me anything, at least anything important. She just tells me to go off and get my chores or schoolwork done. I have a plan. I'm going to wake up early and catch Papa in the morning before he leaves for the hospital. If I wait for him at the table before the sun comes up, look right at him and speak loudly, he'll be so surprised he'll have to answer me. Love, Nisha. Think about freedom right now. Think about what freedom really means. You can connect this to what's going on now. You can also make text-to-text connections with Roll of Thunder and with the circuit. Okay, just think about that. I'm on page 32. July 25th, 1947. Dear Mama, today nothing went right at all, and I'm so glad I have this diary now to tell you about it. I slept too late and Papa was already gone. Emil told me that at his school, a Hindu boy called a Muslim boy a very bad word that I can't even write down. They got into a big fight and now they're both suspended from school for a week. Emil said when they were fighting, all the Hindu boys chanted on one side and the Muslim boys chanted on the other. Everything is different now, even though it's exactly the same. I can see it all around us, but I don't know what to call it. It's like a new sound I can hear in the air. Emil and I went our secret way again so nobody can chase us. We've done this before. I hate to tell you, Mama, but lots of boys like to pick on Emil because he's very skinny, has hardly any muscles in his arms, isn't that good at cricket, and sits in the corner and draws everyone. There are some boys who like him because he's so funny, but the tougher boys don't. Sometimes Emil will draw those boys looking mean and monster-like and leave the drawings on the ground for people to step on. The boys always come after him, but Emil is too quick for them. He likes to draw the girls too and makes them extra beautiful with very long eyelashes. His favorite is Chitra. She's the tallest, prettiest girl I know. After school, he'll find her. Oh, that looks really good. Put it on the chair. He'll find her, hand a drawing to her, and run away. She always drops it on the ground, but I see her smile when he gives it to her. She always looks before she lets it go. I think the girls like him better than the boys. Papa didn't get home until late and went to his room without any dinner. Kazi only made dal and paratha stuffed with potatoes. I lie on my bed and wonder what the air will sound like tomorrow. You know what I wish, Mama, more than anything in the world? That I could spend just one day with you, so I'd know what your skin looks like up close and the sound of your voice. I'd know the scent of you like I know how Papa always smells like hospital soap, smoke, and the pistachio nuts he carries in his pocket. Then I could think about that when I write these words and when I try to fall asleep. Love, Nisha. Now remember, your writing prompt for diary entry 1 is about what do you wish more than anything in the world. Okay, page 34. July 26, 1947. Dear Mama, Emil says we have to go through our secret path every day. It's too risky to walk on the street right now. I told him it was his fault because he drew too many angry pictures of the boys that chase him. He just laughed. Emil laughs when he doesn't know what to say. I hate cutting through the sugar cane. My legs and arms get all scratched up. When I walk, I like to think of dinner and what Kazi might be making. It distracts me. Sometimes I think of new things to make. I wonder how pistachios crushed with rosewater syrup and sweet cheese would taste. I think of a stew made with lamb, tomatoes, cream, and apricots. I think of how garlic and ginger root smell sizzling in ghee or the way dry rice feels falling through my fingers. I said to Emil, if we told all the kids at our schools the truth about Mama, maybe we could be friends with everyone. Maybe it would be a good thing now instead of a bad thing. Maybe we could stay and not have to leave. Nisha, that's the stupidest thing you've ever said. Maybe you should always keep your mouth shut, Emil told me. I know you may not want to hear this, Mama, but I spit on his toes and ran back out to the road and walked by myself all the way home. I held my breath because I was so afraid, but no one chased me, even though I saw some of the boys that don't like Emil on the other side of the road. Then I realized the only reason they chase us is because of Emil and his ridiculous drawings and his big mouth. The boys aren't mad at me. I'm safer by myself. Love, Nisha. Page 36. July 28, 1947. Dear Mama, I'm very sorry, but I couldn't write to you yesterday and tell you the rest of the story. I needed all the feelings to stop boiling like a pot of dal and be cool enough for me to taste them. After I left Emil, I came home first and went to the kitchen. Yeah, that looks really good. And came to the kitchen. I sat on a stool and watched Kazi chop vegetables and grind spices. He asked if I wanted to slice the okra, but I hate okra. I truly don't know why anyone likes it. When it cooks, it smells like wet dirt. I shook my head no. He asked me if I wanted to grind peppercorns. I shook my head no again. Kazi just shrugged and handed me a chapati to eat. I chewed and stayed silent just like Emil said I should. Maybe he's right. Maybe it's easier that way. An hour went by, but Emil didn't come home. Those boys could have found him, beaten him, and left him lying on the ground. My breathing got faster. What if he was hurt, alone, and bleeding? What if it was my fault? I started to sweat. I opened my mouth, closed it, then opened it again, and the words came out slowly. I told Kazi about the boys, Emil's drawings, our secret path, and how we went different ways today. I didn't tell him what Emil said. Kazi put down the mortar and pestle and took off his apron. It's good you told me, Nishi, he said. Then he took my hand, squeezed it hard, and asked me to show him the path. We told Dottie we were going to the market, which was probably not a good idea since I never go to the market with Kazi. But before she could respond, we left. We walked on the dirt path and through the sugarcane all the way to school, but no Emil. Kazi said we had to tell Papa. I shook my head hard and bit my lip to stop the tears. But it didn't stop them, and they fell on my nose, my chin, the ground. Kazi pulled me toward the hospital. We stepped into the building. I never like going there. First, there's the smell. It smells clean and dirty all at once. Rubbing alcohol, flowers, vomit, and pee. Everything is white or brown. The outside is brown brick, and the inside has light brown cement floors, white walls, and white sheets on the bed. I hate to see sick people, old men and women lying in beds, moaning, grabbing on the nurses' sleeves. Or worse, I'll see a girl my age, too thin, yellow skin, blank eyes, leaning against her mother, waiting to be seen, and I'll wonder why she is there and I'm here, able to run, smile, and eat. People die there all the time. Emil likes it at the hospital. He runs around and gives all the old lady patients flowers. He's not afraid of the sick the way I am. One of the nurses came up to us. Kazi asked for Papa. He stood, Mia, that's too much. He stood and waited in the hallway until Papa came. He stood with crossed arms and looked at me before he spoke. What brings you here, Nisha? He finally asked. It's Emil, I whispered. There was a nurse standing near us folding sheets. I can't hear you, Nisha, he said, his eyebrows scrunched together the way they do before he gets really angry. He's lost, I told him as loud as I could and stared at my feet. I see, he said. That's not what he told me. Emil! I jumped as Papa called out Emil's name. Then Emil hobbled slowly out of one of the hospital rooms on crutches. He had a bandage on his leg. I ran up to him and hugged him. He didn't hug me back. Did they beat you? I whispered in his ear. Did who beat you? Papa asked. Papa said. Emil and I looked at each other. I wondered what he had told Papa. No one, Emil yelled and began to cry. Who? Demanded Papa. Some Muslim boys, Emil answered through his sobbing. Stop crying, Papa said with disgust. He hates it when we cry. For as long as I remember, crying makes Papa get either angry or just walk away. I looked toward Kazi, but he wasn't there anymore. Had he left? I blinked to make sure I was right. They didn't beat me. I ran away, Emil said, and rubbed his eyes furiously with the backs of his hands. He took a deep breath and straightened his shoulders. I was faster than them. I'm always faster than them. So they've come after you before? Papa said. Emil nodded. Nisha, Papa said, is this true? Yes, Papa, I said. Are you doing anything to provoke them? Papa asked. Emil's face reddened. No, Papa. It wasn't exactly true, but I didn't dare tell Papa that. This time it was different. The chasing, the rocks, before it was just stupid things boys do. Now it all had a mysterious anger to it. I don't know what's happening, Mama. I wish you could explain it to me. I'm becoming more and more afraid to ask anyone else all the things I really want to know. Love, Nisha. July 29th, 1947. Dear Mama, last night, a few hours after I fell asleep, Emil woke me up. He lifted up my mosquito net and crawled into my bed next to me. His body felt hotter than mine, but dry as silk, not sweaty like me. Want to know what it felt like? He asked. A low full moon glittered in the sky, and the light spilled through our window like a silver sun. He held his big, swollen, scorpion-bitten foot up in the air. I nodded, trying to shake the sleep away. I ran through an alley to get away from the boys, and my foot slipped out of my sandal. I saw the scorpion on my ankle. I tried to shake it off, and then it stung me. It felt like an electric shock throughout my whole body. I thought I was going to die, but for some reason I wasn't scared. Did it hurt? I asked him. Only after, when it started to swell. He lowered his foot down carefully. I turned to face him. I'm sorry I left you. Do you think those boys would really beat you? Emil shrugged. I'll just keep running. Hopefully Papa will let me stay home until my foot gets better. I nodded and made a silent promise to myself that I would somehow convince Papa to let Emil stay home until he could run. Don't ever leave me like that, I said, turning away from him toward the wall. Where would I go? He said. And we both fell asleep under my mosquito net. We used to sleep like that all the time, but when we turned 8, Papa said we had to sleep in our own beds. When we have bad dreams, or I guess if someone's foot is swollen because of a scorpion bite, then we don't listen to Papa. We quickly move to our own beds in the morning so no one ever knows. Sometimes I wonder if we would have different rules if you were around, Mama. Love, Nisha. July 30th. Dear Mama, when we came out for breakfast this morning, Papa sat at the table. I can't remember the last time Papa had breakfast with us on a weekday. We ate our chapatis and dal quietly. I took a sip of my milk. Papa took a sip of his tea. Then Dottie sipped, and then Emil, really loud. We were making strange music. I had to hold back a smile. After we were finished, Causey took away the plates and went back into the kitchen. Poppy cleared his throat, a big rumbling sound. This is what he said. You won't be going to school for a little while. Things are not safe. Dottie and I will give you your lessons. I couldn't believe my ears. Dottie never reads anything but a newspaper once in a while, and Papa's never home. How could they possibly give us our lessons? But that's what Papa said. When Emil heard, he jumped up and laughed and then gave out a yelp because he stepped on his swollen foot. He sat down quickly, and I thought I saw a little smile sneak out from the corner of Papa's lips. Then Papa rubbed his hands together the way he always does before he gets up and pushes his chair away. I wasn't going to let Papa walk away without explaining more. Was this only because of the boys chasing Emil? I took a very deep breath and spoke loud and clear so Papa would not ask me to repeat it. Why? Why what? Papa said, already starting to get up. My words were stuck. I pressed my lips together. My heartbeat started to race. I took another breath. He now stood tall, looking at me, waiting. I had to keep going. I wanted to know more than I wanted to be silent. Why isn't it safe? Is it because the British are leaving? I asked, and felt my body relax a little now that the words were out. Papa sat back down. He rubbed his chin for a second and then he spoke. Soon, India will be independent from British rule, which is a good thing. They have ruled over us for almost 200 years, treating us like second-class citizens in our own country. But it looks like this country is going to be split in half like a log, partitioned down the middle, he said, drawing a line through the air. Muprakas won't be in India anymore. This land will be in a new country called Pakistan. Emil and I looked at each other. Emil said the word Pakistan out loud. Papa went on. Jinnah, the leader of the Muslim League, wants a place for Muslims to be fairly represented. Nehru, the leader of the Indian National Congress, wants to be the first Prime Minister of India. Gandhi wants everyone to stay together, which is what I want, but most people aren't like Gandhiji. When you divide people, they take sides. There's a lot of confusion and fear out there. I don't want you to get hurt. I nodded, but I couldn't take in all that Papa was saying. Were we just at the mercy of leaders who couldn't agree? Who would people listen to? I thought about Gandhi. I had seen lots of pictures of him in the newspaper, the thin man who wore nothing but a dhoti and glasses. Papa said he was a great man who believed India was a place where people of all religions could live together in peace. When people made him unhappy with their stupid fighting, instead of yelling at them or fighting with them, he wouldn't eat until people were peaceful again. And Papa told us a lot of people listened to him, but I guess not everyone. When we were 9, Papa took us on an overnight train ride to Bombay to see Gandhi. I remember how Emil hated that train ride. Dottie and I tried to keep him busy with songs and card games and snacks so he wouldn't keep jumping up or trying to talk to everyone. Papa just read his papers and books. But when we got there after many hours, the crowd stood so thick, thousands of people from many villages, that I only got a small glimpse of him, far away in his white dhoti, waving. Now I wonder if I had only imagined it. Could Gandhi fix things? Would we really have to leave? Emil opened his mouth to say something, but Papa put his hand up. That should answer your questions, he said. Then he rubbed his hands together one more time, got up, and set out for the hospital. Dottie told us to stay at the table, and we did some simple addition problems on the abacus until Dottie started making her funny teeth-sucking noises and waved us away. The thought of not going to school made my body heavy with sadness. I'm going to miss school. I like being around different people even if I don't want to talk to them. I like having tasks set before me so I can busy myself without thinking too much. I don't like thinking about things I can't understand. Love, Nisha. How many of you can relate to this statement right now? Okay, think about that for a minute. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, page 47. July 31st, 1947. Dear Mama, Causey has been behaving differently. He let me sort the lentils yesterday and soak some beans, but when I asked him if I could grind the peppercorns, he told me it would make me sneeze like last time and that I should spend more time with my books since I wasn't in school. The day went so slowly without school. It felt like a Sunday, which is normally a treat, but now it's too much and we are sick with our freedom. Emil and I went outside after Dottie made us write the alphabet 10 times even though I've been writing my alphabet since I was 6. This is not so easy for Emil, though. He says letters to him are like bugs and grass waving in the wind. They are not flat. They move and change in his mind. He says he writes what he sees in the moment. I look at his paper. He doesn't do a list. He just puts each letter in its own place on the paper. Sometimes it's the right way. Sometimes it's upside down. Sometimes it's only part of the letter. And sometimes it's facing the opposite direction. He decorates them with swirling snakes and hungry scorpions. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But Dottie comes over and sucks on her teeth. I bet, Mama, that's why you liked to paint, because you could see things that no one else could, just like Emil. I wish I were like that. I see exactly what's in front of me. Sometimes it's so clear it hurts my eyes. Love, Nisha. August 1st, 1947. Dear Mama, this is what I did today. I got up, had a chapati and a bowl of yogurt, and sat at the table helping Dottie fold the linen napkins. Then she made me do my alphabet. I told her I can write the alphabet backward 100 times in my sleep. She slapped my hand and told me to run and play with Emil, who was nowhere to be found. But I didn't care. I just didn't want to sit at the table with Dottie anymore. I spotted Emil sitting in the garden among the cucumbers. He was counting them. We have 27 new ones, he told me. We each picked a cucumber and ate it. It was crunchy and slightly warm and sweet from the sun. Now we have 25. As we ate, I could hear Emil chewing. I hate listening to people chew, especially crunchy things. I hate hearing their tongues smacking around. Swallowing is the worst part. It makes me think of the chewed up food going down their throats, slow and wet, and I want to scream. I chewed louder so I couldn't hear him anymore. Then we went inside because it was so hot and took a nap. Dottie woke us a little later and told us to sweep. Emil said no and ran out the door before Dottie could even call him. He'll probably hide in the garden shed etching pictures on the soft wooden walls with sharp rocks. He once said if we ever moved, he would leave our story on the walls. I always thought we'd never leave, but now who knows? I thought of a stranger, a boy or a girl, finding Emil's pictures and wondering what they meant. Page 50. Sometimes I go look and see what he's added. There's Papa with his stethoscope and Causey stirring a pot of something. There's Dottie sewing. There's me and Emil sitting in a garden. They are simple, rough pictures. There's one where Emil is looking up at me, and I look much bigger than he does. I wonder if Emil really feels so much smaller. If I could draw, I would draw Emil like a long branch, tall and thin, but breakable. I would be small and curled up, hiding somewhere in the shade. Think about how each of these descriptions represent Emil and Nisha and their personalities and their identity. Okay? Just think about that, make some quick annotations to the side, pause the video, and then continue it. I don't mind sweeping. I like the soothing brush sound. After sweeping, I went into the kitchen, sat on the stool, and watched Causey stir and chop. I sniffed the air. Coriander, garlic, spinach, the tangy scent of chickpeas soaking in a bowl. I felt hungry and grabbed a few radishes I saw sitting by the windowsill, cut them up, sprinkled them with cayenne pepper and lemon juice, and popped each piece in my mouth, enjoying the sour heat. I stood after I finished my snack. Causey pushed a pot of lentils to be sorted toward me, his head still down. "Are you mad at me, Causey?" I whispered. I found that whispering gets people's attention even better than being loud. He looked up and stared for a moment, then his face turned soft. No, I can never be mad at someone as sweet as you. I'm just mad at the world," he told me. I wanted to ask him why, but then I thought of how the answer might make my stomach hurt. So I kept quiet and went through the lentils, making sure there were no little pebbles or grit, and rinsed them off with water. I slipped a shiny one in my mouth and tried to chew it, but it almost broke my teeth. We had my favorite spinach dish for dinner, saibaji with puri, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And I ate up every last bit. I think Causey made it just for me. He even made gulab jamun for dessert as if it were a party. I remember when we used to have parties. Papa would have his brothers over with my aunties and cousins. Some of our neighbors would come, and Papa would smoke cigars or his pipe with the other men outside on the veranda. The women would sit in the main room, drink tea, and pass around samosa and kebab. Then we'd all have a huge feast with mutton, biryani, dal, curries, puri, paratha, and pakora. We hardly ever ate meat except for parties. My mouth watered at its richness. Page 52. Afterward, Papa would turn on his record player, and all the kids would have a cricket game outside until we came in exhausted and lay our heads on the floor. Someone would pop a sweet in my mouth and send me off to bed. There was so much noise and laughter that late at night, I'd start talking to my cousins without even thinking. My voice would slip into all the other voices. It was the me I was underneath, the me that usually stays inside. Ever since Emil and I have gotten a little older, Papa doesn't like to have parties. I'm not sure why. Papa used to be happier, or maybe Emil and I used to be happier. I'm not sure which. Tonight I pretended we were having a party as we ate our gulab jamun. I like to make mine last as long as possible, the rosewater syrup tickling my tongue. Then I asked Emil to play chess with me before we went to bed. When Papa came in to kiss us goodnight, I could smell the rosewater on his lips from dessert. It's his favorite, too. I rolled over and whispered in his ear, "When can we go back to school, Papa?" Emil sat up on his bed and looked at Papa, but Papa just patted my head and left. I don't ask many questions, so it would be fair if he answered the few I ask. He should be more appreciative. I could be like Emil and ask a question every 5 seconds, but he doesn't answer many of those either. Love, Nisha. August 2nd, 1947. Dear Mama, today Emil and I were playing chess when we heard people yelling outside. It was so far away we ignored it at first. It's strange how good Emil is at chess since he can barely write a sentence. This is one way I know Emil is so smart. He wins every game, but I still like trying. Someday I'll win. I've come close. I know Emil feels bad for always winning. He always says, "Checkmate, sorry." I tell him it's okay. I tell him that he's good at chess and drawing since I always do much better. I like that he's good at chess and drawing since I always do much better at school. Papa taught Emil how to play when he was 6, and then Emil taught me when Papa didn't have time to play with him anymore. I think it's that Emil started beating Papa, and Papa didn't like that. As we played, the yelling grew louder. I still couldn't hear what they were saying. We ran to the window and saw men walking up the hill holding torches. Dottie, who was sewing, got up and grabbed us away from the window, brought us into the kitchen, and pushed us into the pantry. I stood near the large tins of rice and could smell the cinnamon sticks which sat on a shelf right near my face. Kazi had already gone to his cottage for the day. Dottie hissed at us to stay still. Then she ran out and turned off the lanterns in the main room. She came back into the pantry with us breathing hard and pulled us in the corner with her. She threw an old tablecloth over us and began to pray. We crouched down as she rocked back and forth and whispered her prayers to Lord Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Someone banged on our front door. I reached for Emil's hand in the darkness and he held it tight. His hand was cold and wet like a fish. The door banged again and then we heard it burst open and people walking around in our house. We heard things being knocked down, a bowl, a lantern, the table. Emil's hand felt even colder, but I held on. After a while, the sounds quieted down. We waited many minutes after the silence. Then we heard Kazi's voice calling for us. I let out the breath I felt like I had been holding the entire time. We unfolded ourselves from the corner of the pantry and came out. Kazi's eyes were wild and blood trickled down his face like a spider. I felt a rush of nausea and steadied myself by clutching the wall. Dottie moved very quickly and got a clean towel from the kitchen, wrapping Kazi's head tightly while he sat. I had never seen her move so fast. She must love Kazi as much as I do. Emil and I lit some candles and a lantern that wasn't broken. We picked up the knocked-down chairs and table, cleaned the glass from the broken lanterns, and put the books back on the shelf. I found Kazi's favorite big clay bowl he always used for chopped vegetables or mixing dough. It lay smashed to pieces on the kitchen floor. I kneeled by his chair and showed him a big chunk of it, my hands shaking. "It's okay, Nishi," he said and patted my arm. "We'll get another." I nodded and turned so he wouldn't see my tears as I swept up all the pieces. I slipped a small piece in my pocket. After we cleaned, we sat together at the table, but hardly talked. Nobody went to bed. Dottie kept checking Kazi's head, but he had stopped bleeding. Finally, Papa came home. He stared at us all sitting in the kitchen table, blinking as if he were seeing a vision. Before he could say anything, Dottie told him what happened. He nodded, his face serious, his eyes glassy and tired looking. He walked over and examined Kazi's head. You need stitches, he said calmly. Emil, go fetch my medicine bag. When Emil brought it, Papa started cleaning out Kazi's wound with rubbing alcohol. Kazi made a face and sucked in his breath. Emil and I watched with open mouths as he injected Kazi with something that would numb his skin and then started to thread his needle with thick black thread. As the needle pricked Kazi's skin, my stomach flipped. I couldn't watch any more, but Emil walked closer and Papa started to explain what he was doing. Emil's chest puffed up and he nodded proudly, listening to every word. Emil loved watching Papa do all his doctor stuff, but I hated blood and needles. I rubbed my forehead, which throbbed in the same place Kazi's gash was. Nisha and Emil, it's time to go to sleep, Papa said, after he finished and sat down in his big chair. I need to discuss things with Dottie. Dottie came over and sat in her chair. But what happened? Emil cried, running his hands through his hair. Who hurt Kazi? What if they saw us? Would we all be dead? Were they after you, Papa? Papa squinted at Emil. After me? What did I do? Everyone has gone crazy, that's all. This was supposed to be a beautiful moment in history. India will soon be a free country. But instead, what are we doing? What are we doing? Papa shook his head and he became quiet. Then he rubbed his eyes. Dottie came over and put her hand on his shoulder. Sometimes the world as you know it just decides to become something else. This is our destiny now, he said, still rubbing his eyes. Dottie spoke to us louder than she usually did, staying by Papa's side. But you must not worry. We will always keep you safe. Emil and I nodded. What would have happened if the men found us in the pantry? I'd never wondered about being safe before. I just thought I was. Yes, of course, Papa said, looking up, his face relaxing. We'll figure something out. Then he shooed us off. Emil and I sat cross-legged on his bed facing each other, too frightened to go to sleep. The fear I felt almost seemed like something exciting, and yet I knew it wasn't. Our destiny? I asked Emil. What is Papa talking about? I guess he means that everybody starts fighting eventually. Sometimes you and I fight, but then we make up, I said to him hopefully. That's because we're family. We're all we have. I picked at a loose thread on his bedspread. He continued, Do you think it was Muslims or Hindus that came? I don't know, I said. If it was Muslims, why would they want to hurt Kazi? What side are we even on? Do we have to take a side, I asked. I think it's safer. That way you know who your enemy is, Emil said, and crossed his arms tightly over his chest. But if we don't take a side, then we don't have any enemies. I don't think it works that way, Emil said. Gandhiji would agree with me, I told him. And anyway, I thought the two sides were supposed to be us and the British. Why are we fighting each other? I want you to think about Emil and Nisha's conversation just now about taking sides, okay, and why you should take sides, and then what Emil's perspective is and what Nisha's perspective is. Think about that. Write them down. Make some annotations here. What are your personal thoughts on this conversation between the two? Okay. Emil cocked his head to the side, thinking. I wanted to know who the men were too, but even if I knew the answer, it still wouldn't make any sense. Me, Emil, Papa, Dottie, and Kazi. That's it. That's the only side I know how to be on. The world seems so tiny now. I don't even really have you, Mama. I try to make you real by writing these letters. But who knows if you're even listening? I wish you could give me a sign. Love, Nisha. Page 60. And we're on August 3rd, 1947. Just a few more pages to go. Hang in there. Dear Mama, today I woke up and found Kazi in the kitchen kneading dough. He gave me some and I sank my fingers into it. I noticed he still had his bandage on. I rolled the dough into a ball and flattened it again into a thin circle. Kazi hummed a song to himself. Kazi, I whispered in my strongest whisper. Why is this happening? I'm 12 now and ready to know everything. He looked at me and his whole face changed, his mouth smiling wide. I could see almost all his yellow teeth. And I am 4 times as much. but I feel like I don't know anything. I placed my dough on the counter and punched and punched until I couldn't hear my thoughts. Causey caught my hands and squeezed. Stop, Nisha. You will hurt yourself. I ran out of the kitchen to my room and curled up in the corner, hugging my knees close. I wanted Causey to come. I waited and waited. If he came, it would mean he loved me. He didn't come, and I cried until breakfast. When I came to the table for breakfast, Causey was not there. Papa was there, and Emil was there, and Dottie was there. Papa kept his eyes on his food, which meant that nobody should talk. We ate in silence. Then I brought my plate to the kitchen. Later, when Emil and I went outside, we saw Causey in the garden picking vegetables. I grabbed Emil and pulled him around to the back of the bungalow. I asked him why Causey wouldn't tell me anything. I just wish I knew who beat Causey and why, I said. I heard some Muslim homes were burned not that far from here. Maybe they were angry, Emil said, bending over, ripping up pieces of grass. So will everyone burn everyone? I asked. I don't know, Emil said, throwing up his hands, letting go of the grass. We watched it float to the ground. A surge of anger I've never felt before bloomed in my chest. Let all the crazy men come and burn it all down. Let them burn our gardens and the hospital and your picture, Mama, like it was never there at all. We would go somewhere fresh and new where people were happy. All kinds of people practicing all kinds of religions. A place where Papa wasn't gone all the time, where Dottie would know more and not make strange noises with her teeth. A place where I could go to school safely and make wonderful things in the kitchen with Causey whenever I wanted. A place where you were alive and would talk to school and would walk to school with me, holding my hand, and nobody would mind that you were Muslim and Papa was Hindu, and Emil and I could hold both sides of our parents in our hearts. We could go to a place where Emil didn't see his words differently, and I knew how to talk easily in front of people and had real friends. While everything burned to flat black ash, we wouldn't be sad because we'd be in this new place. Love, Nisha. I want you to think about Nisha's speech right then. Do you remember our word of the day? Cosmopoietic, world creating. Okay, and our example sentence was about the cosmopoietic aspects of Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. So I want you to relate that to Nisha's speech right there and the cosmopoietic aspects of her speech. Okay, just a little connection there with class. All right, page 63, August 4th, 1947. Dear Mama, it's the middle of the night and I can't go back to sleep. I had a dream that you were alive. You came into my room and lay down next to me on my bed. You looked so real. Your hair was long and loose and you wore an emerald and gold salwar kameez. I'm sorry if I mispronounced those words. I touched you and you smiled. You told me you'd take me to your favorite star, that we could actually go there and look down and watch the rest of the world. You carried me up to the sky and we flew toward a bright light. But I couldn't see anything, and then you were gone. I was swimming in light all by myself. That's when I woke up sweating and confused. This is your way of visiting me, right, Mama? I feel so happy because now I know you're listening. Love, Nisha. So Nisha got her sign. Page 64, August 5th, 1947. Dear Mama, today was the strangest day. Causey took everything out of the pantry, the containers of lentils, dried peas, rice, flour, and spices. He took out all the utensils and pans and bowls. He wiped down the counters with rags dipped in water and vinegar. Then he lined things up, ready to be carried away at any moment. Does this mean we're leaving? The thought made me dizzy. Then Papa came home early and sat with us and took turns playing chess, and he didn't even seem mad that Emil won. After that, he read from the Mahabharata storybook for a long time. His voice sounded different, higher, sadder. He read slowly and didn't stop when he was supposed to at the periods. Why did Papa do that? Emil asked when Papa left. I lay on my bed, turning my gaze toward the long, wavy crack on the ceiling. I held up my finger and traced it in the air. Papa had never read us a story before, not once. In fact, other than my school teachers reading out of our textbooks, no one had ever read to me before. Dottie would sing to us when we were little and tell us stories that she remembered from her childhood, but she never read out of a book. Did Papa read to me when I was little and I just don't remember? He's lonely, Emil said. Maybe he was lonely. Maybe he was scared too. I'd felt lonely many times before, but I didn't think grown-ups could get lonely. Papa's in the hospital all day with people. But when Emil said it, I realized it was the perfect word for Papa. I could see it in his blank eyes every day, his slumped shoulders. I felt sad for him. He must miss you, Mama, in a different way than I do. He misses the time he had with you. I miss the time I didn't have. He must remember the way the house smelled when you were in it, the sound of your voice filling the air, the sight of you painting your pictures. The moment Emil and I were here, with our crying, our bottles of milk, our little fingers and toes, you were gone. Maybe he'll do it again, I said. Maybe, Emil answered. He needs to practice. He's a terrible reader, I said. Yes, he is terrible, isn't he? He said, his eyes becoming bright and excited. We both giggled with our hands over our mouths. For some reason, it made us happy to think about how terrible he was. I wondered if Papa had trouble seeing letters the right way like Emil. But that couldn't be. He was a doctor. He read all those medical books. I hope he'll read to us again. Love, Nisha. The end of that section. Till next time.